Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with Ozark, Season 1, Episode 4, Review. So overall, not a bad episode by any means. Definitely a little bit better than Episode 3, I think. But another down episode in my opinion. Some big stuff happened in this one. Kind of just one main big thing happened. But more of it's, just kind of getting us used to the family there in the Ozarks and kind of, telling us, or showing us, I guess, how life is there and, how they're miserable, stuff like that. So, I don't know, kind of a down part in the season right now. Episode 1 and Episode 2 were great. So obviously, I'm definitely expecting more of that later. But as always, you gotta have some episodes that aren't always the best, right? That's just how it is with shows, right? So, anyways, yeah, let's jump right into it. I think that's basically just what I wanted to say. It's better than Episode 3, but still not that good. So, anyways, so yeah, let's get into it. So Marty, we start off here by a little a voice overlay of him explaining the money laundering, and then we also see then later in the overlay we see Dell pick up money from the bank there at an ATM or something like that, and he's counting the money, stuff like that. There and kind of interesting. So obviously at that point we don't know that it comes back and connects with the ending of the episode, and that's what I love about this show. Always the first little part there gets you hooked, for one, and two, they always come right back to it, and it ends up being something in the show later on that episode, or even maybe in the next one. So that's what I really like about this show, is just how they can do that so flawlessly and easily, really, that they can bring it back. So yeah, I really like that. But anyways, I'll talk about that scene more later on, of course, because it does come up at the very end as well. So then we kind of start off that Marty meets that stripper or the woman working at that the titty bar is what it's called, but it's actually called Lickety Splits. Anyway, so she is named Margaret. So basically what this meeting is about is that Marty asked for her pay stub from of course her boss there at the Lickety Splits that it's called, or the titty bar that he refers to it as. And so she also tells him where the safe is located, and that it's in the owner's office there. At this point, we don't know the owner's name, but his name is actually Bobby Dean, that we find out later. So the safe is located in Bobby's office. And, we don't really know what Marty's up to, neither does Margaret, right? So she's, she asks them, where they're going to go or whatever, because she thinks that, he wants to pay for sex or something like that. But, he says no, give this to the waitress or whatever, right? So it's kind of a funny scene there. But anyway, so yeah, she doesn't really know what Marty's up to, but she helps him, and obviously it goes a long way, as we learn later. So we learn that the old house in Chicago closed, and it sells for $40,000 over the asking price. And so that was a big thing there, that it finally sold, and that they're getting the money from that now, because as we know, they didn't have much money now in the Ozarks. So basically Wendy wants to put the assets in her name, because then if Marty gets arrested for what he's doing, then they can't freeze the family's assets, and the family would still have money to function and stuff like that, or to put it in real estate. So she's kind of throwing out these ideas, right, that are kind of crazy for what she's done to Marty and all that. So obviously he says no, strongly declines. He says, I'm trying to save our lives here. So obviously he doesn't think about it at all. And Wendy, in my opinion, I still don't really like her at this point. I think her cheating and just the things she's done so far are just kind of unforgivable still at this point. But that's just me. Well, it's probably not me. Most of the viewers feel that way. But yeah, so he kind of turns her down and says, one of those comments. And he had a lot of those one-liners in this episode, which I loved, Jason Bateman was great in delivering them as well. So there you go. But yeah, so and then of course the one is coming up now where basically he's at the Blue Cat Lodge there doing some stuff, and he sees these men are all looking at at Charlotte's ass walking down the dock there. Uh, this is just kind of a funny scene. Didn't really do much for the plot, of course, but just kind of a funny thing to kind of show that Charlotte's sort of becoming a little bit rebellious, maybe. And she's wearing these really short shorts, of course. So Marty tells her, could you put a windbreaker on or something like that? And she says, it's really hot outside. No one wears a windbreaker, stuff like that. And so he says, yeah, he said one of these really funny things. I think he said, if you want readers or something, why don't you just put Shakespeare on your ass or something like that. It was really funny. And then he talks to the woman there, the owner, and he gets back to the bar. Then walking with her up to the lodge there, and all these men are kind of screaming and laughing at Charlotte there, and he says, she's 15, asshole. Just pointing that out. I think that was a hilarious scene. And of course, the one guy, laughs at the other guy for doing what he was doing because she's 15, obviously a lot younger and not even legal age for anything, right? So, pretty funny scene there for Marty to go back and in his own way get back at them. So, cool there. So the Blue Cat Lodge owner, I'm not sure what her name is. I think we have heard it before, but I just wasn't able to get it in this episode. So next episode I'll try, or I might just look it up. That's what I did with the Langmore boys as well. So the Wyatt Langmore and 3 is the younger one. So now I know that. But anyway, so the owner confronts Ruth that she's telling people when certain families are out for supper there at the lodge, and basically texting people so that they can rob their house when they're not there. So pretty elaborate scheme here that Ruth has made up. Obviously, it's probably with Russ and Boyd and the other 2 boys that are probably doing the robbing and making some money. And so then, she says, people have standards or whatever when they come in here. They don't want to go home and have no, I think it was no jewelry, no TV or stereo, something like that. That Ruth's people stole all this stuff. So pretty smart on her part to figure this out and do that, but definitely not okay in a restaurant fashion there. So I wonder what's going to happen with that family. I guess she never said anything about giving back the stuff, so that family's kind of out of luck and lost most of their stuff, which is kind of sad, but that's what Ruth does, I guess. So she's a thief. And then of course Marty walks in on it and is kind of kind of just flabbergasted about the whole thing, and flabbergasted that the owner confronted her, sort of. I don't think he's surprised that Ruth would do something like that because that's just who she is, right? And so then a huge scene comes up where Del actually calls Marty when he's at the lodge, and of course we get that really dark and mysterious music coming in right when he calls him, right? And so basically what he says is he says they will kill Marty and his family, and he says to Marty, just admit it, you're fucked, or whatever, right? Because he's starting to catch on. None of his money has come through obviously yet, and he knows that Marty is, well, he doesn't know, but he's suspecting that Marty lied about the whole Ozarks thing, and of course we know that there's nothing down there, right? So anyway, so then Dell's kind of unraveling these lies fed by Marty to him, and basically at the end there he hangs up on him. So obviously Marty only has a little bit of time now to kind of redeem himself, and Dell kind of lets him know that he's on his case and he knows what's going on. So Marty's got to get the money to him as soon as possible if he wants to live and his family to live. So scary moment there for sure. And then of course we kind of see in the background that the FBI agent is there, and he actually watches and listens to the phone call. So pretty interesting there. He's kind of lurking in the background. Show keeps reminding that to us as well, that FBI is there. He's there. He's trying to to get to the bottom of what's going on. So that little fear is always there for Marty. So basically, then after that big phone call happens, Marty kind of realizes that he has to do something about it. He can't, just being at this Blue Cat Lodge and trying to launder money through it, right? So he decides that he's gonna get or he's gonna basically rob Bobby Dean, the owner of that Lickety Splits strip club there, and he is going to give Ruth the job of doing it because he knows that she's a good thief. So he gives her the job of robbing Bobby Dean's safe in his strip club. So he wants all the contents in it, is what he says to her. And they agree on that Marty will give her 25% of what's inside. And of course, Ruth agrees because she needs money. And, she's a great thief. And, what else does she have to do? So that was kind of a really cool thing here. And I will admit that I did kind of predict this last episode. I kind of did say that Ruth and Marty could work together, and this is exactly what's happening. So that's pretty cool that they're kind of working together, using their strengths, teaming up and doing something like this. So it's really cool to see that. Really cool to see Ruth's character working with that Marty character. And in my opinion, those two are probably the best characters right now in the show. Or two of the most positive characters that the viewers like at the moment. So yeah, so basically Ruth basically has to go and scope it out, of course, to know where the safe is. So she knows it's in his office, but she doesn't know where. So Ruth goes for an interview with Bobby Dean to become a stripper there at the Lickety Splits, so she's basically going to find the safe, of course, not for the interview. Of course, Bobby Dean doesn't know that, right? It's a pretty funny scene, to be honest with you. So basically, Bobby, of course, doesn't know that she is there, just to find the safe and not for an interview, obviously. Basically, Ruth kind of sells him, does some of the stuff he wants, and it was great acting by the actor who plays her, Jennifer Garner. She was great in this. He portrayed the character really well. Stuck to the Ruth character, but then also kind of went out of the comfort zone there and was doing whatever, like pulling her pants up for Bobby there. And so it was kind of a awkward scene, but definitely interesting and like I said, great acting in those parts as well. And so basically what happens then is she finds the safe under his desk, so she knows where it is now, and she punches him in the balls and gets out of there as soon as she can. So it's kind of a funny scene there, and of course we kind of see that Bobby is pretty sketchy because obviously the stuff that he asked her to do is really not appropriate for for her coming for an interview, of course. So obviously he's a little sketchy there. But basically, so then that kind of ends that. So she finds the safe, and then later on, of course, it connects back. But then we get this whole storyline of Jonah drags back a dead wolf carcass through the forest. And it's a really weird moment for us, of course, because, we have no idea what's going on, and it's kind of weird to drag a dead animal, right? So Marty sees Jonah on the dock when he comes home, and he talks with Wendy. It's kind of a funny scene. And then they talk first at the house there, and then later on they go out onto the boat, out in the water, so the kids can't hear. So it's like a private conversation, so they won't interrupt them or anything like that. And this was a really, really funny dialogue. Well, not at the time, but later on in the episode, where we learn what Jonah's real intentions are. It just is an hilarious scene. But Langmores, we figure out, weren't the ones who planted the animals. It was actually Jonah who has been dragging these carcasses back to basically look at these turkey vultures, right? And so at the one point, they bring up, Marty says, what if he's just a pretty little boy, and then one day he just goes and shoots up a high school or something like that. Like, it was like, what? What are you thinking? But obviously, this is a real thing about serial killers in the past and and messed up messed up guys who are just people in general, I guess, who have disorders or whatever, actually kill animals when they're younger. It's been in stories, of course, in TV and movies also, right? So I mean, it's not a crazy idea, but it's just funny how he delivers it as well. And of course, it ends up being so much funnier later on when we learn that Jonah's not even close to doing that. Um, so basically, then Charlotte hears them from the house, which we see, but they don't. And then that kind of creates some conflict later. So then we switch over to the FBI agent. He baits Russ Langmore after doing some research on him. He baits him at the bar there to basically spend time with them. He introduces himself as Robert Powell, obviously making up a name. Yeah, I think that's making up a name. I don't think that is his real name. Now that I'm saying it, I think that actually might be his real name. But I'm not sure. I never had his name to begin with, so I'm actually gonna look that up. But I think it's a fake name that he gives him, of course. And he offers money, and of course he knows that that's gonna get Russ going. So Russ agrees to take him out. And basically they have that weird conversation out at the water, where the FBI agent admits to being gay, and how he likes men. And of course Russ, being the redneck kind of guy that he is, obviously has a problem with him being gay, and so that it's kind of funny there. And the agent drives him home, pulls in his driveway or whatever, and he knows that every time he talks about money or whatever, Langmore's going to be in, right? So he says double the money or whatever in front of all of them, in front of I think Ruth, Boyd, and Russ. They're at the house. And it's kind of funny because it works right away. Boyd says money, like, why are you passing that up or whatever? And then Russ comes back and he said he's a faggot or whatever. And then of course Boyd kind of backs off right away. So it's kind of funny, but definitely a necessary thing to kind of explain the characters more, the Langmore characters more, and also to see what the FBI agent's up to as well. In the background here in the Ozark. So he's definitely here, but he hasn't shown his face to Marty and that family yet. So, of course, they confront Jonah later, and he says he's studying the turkey vultures, and, he's completely normal. I mean, it's still kind of weird that, he's getting these carcasses and studying these vultures. Kind of weird thing to do, but like they were saying, he doesn't really have many friends here in the Ozarks. So, that's just kind of his thing of fun, I guess. And it's just a hilarious moment it ends up being. And you see it on Jason Bateman's face and Marty's face and Wendy's face too when they find out he's just studying them. So funny because they thought he was a school shooter a few minutes ago, and now they find out that it's he's fine. So it's just really funny. It ends up being a scene there, but yeah. So then Ruth takes $2,000 from Marty, and says she needs it to do the job robbing the safe. She gives it to a bunch of young boys though, to basically go into the strip club, and of course they're all underage. So at this point, Marty's saying, "Wait, what is she doing? Right? She's ruining the plan or whatever." And obviously she doesn't end up doing that. It's all part of her plan, but we don't know what that is at the time. And of course Marty watches this all from his van. And so then a little bit after that, the police actually come to the nightclub and they say, that they've had reports of shots fired at the club. So obviously, and as we see in the club, that there was no shots fired. That never happened, of course. But obviously someone called it in and said it was shots fired. So in my opinion, I think it was Ruth who called in, and as part of her plan. But that's just me. So basically, then Ruth calls Marty after the cops come, and of course, we find out that it was all part of her plan and that she's in the office trying to get the safe, but she says she can't get into it. So this was pretty funny, to be honest with you. And Marty basically comes up with this plan to drag this safe, just take it all the way out, of the building in his van, just pulling it with this chain that he got from a gate or something like that. And it's just funny. So the police are all arresting Bobby and the rest of the some of the women there, and of course talking to the young kids who are in there who are underage. A lot of that commotion's going on, and so then Marty just drags the safe out of the building, a hole, just through the wall. Really funny, and then later on we see that he finds what he was looking for, and it's the share warrant to bearer. Is what is the title on it. I kind of paused and read it a little bit, and so basically, really important document, and of course we see that it comes up later on in the episode. So then we get that breakfast scene. So that big heist thing was really cool, though. A really good portion of the episode and really cool, but I'm not going to touch on everything that happened. So the breakfast scene then, where Charlotte confronts Marty and Wendy about the talk on the boat because she's heard about it, and basically exposes them to Jonah. Says out loud that they thought he was a school shooter or something, and then this kind of is starting to kind of pit the kids against the parents. We've seen it before, but then this is also coming up again, where Jonah says, "You guys have been lying to us forever. How can I trust you guys anymore?" Right? That sort of thing. And they're definitely starting to question Marty and Wendy here. And before, obviously they thought they were a normal family. They did whatever they were asked. But now they're sort of questioning, okay, well, I mean, my dad's a money launderer for a drug cartel, and they've been lying to us. Should we really trust them about everything? So, and they definitely have a point. But I mean, they're still kids, and they should still be listening to their parents. But it just creates a kind of a cool conflict there that I bet we're going to see for the rest of the season and maybe even the rest of the show. So then we have a really weird scene here that Wendy is down at the dock, and she calls Gary Silverberg, her ex-lover, the lawyer that died in episode 1, and leaves a message for him. Basically calls him and leaves a message on his phone that obviously hasn't been disconnected or whatever, right? Because he's only been dead, I think, a couple weeks, maybe a week. And then later on, Marty kind of finds out that he was the one she called, and just a really awkward moment. Sorry, an awkward moment when he kind of finds that out. And he's kind of surprised. He thought she was just calling her friend or something like that. But she's calling a dead guy on his voicemail. So, and she does it again later in the episode as well. And then she actually gets an answer and hangs up. So, kind of just awkward, but kind of shows her loneliness and kind of more of her paranoia actually with the Ozarks and the new location. So, then this scene was really good. Really good acting on both Jason Bateman and the guy who plays Bobby Dean. I'm not sure who it is, but definitely good acting here. Marty meets with Bobby in the prison, and of course he's still there. And basically he agrees to pay for his bail. And that's how he gets in to talk to Bobby there, because Bobby obviously doesn't want to talk to him. And he totally outsmarts Bobby, tells him about the warrant to bearer, and he just kind of connects it all around, and says, what if the owner of this lickety splits doesn't have this piece of paper, and then he goes into depth about explaining exactly where it was, exactly where he found it, and Bobby obviously can't do anything about it. Marty has the piece of paper, and he just realizes that he's been defeated and he can't do anything. Marty has the piece of paper. What is he gonna do? Beat him up in the prison? After Marty just paid his bail, he could, but obviously he would just serve more time. So, he can't do he basically can't do anything, and Marty definitely won this one. And yeah, so it's really good. And then Marty still offers $175,000, and it's funny because at the beginning he offered $200,000, and then towards the end, after he gets a little confident and he knows that he's got Bobby right where he wants him, he goes down to $175,000. So it's kind of funny there, and becomes the owner of Lickety Splits. So that's how it all goes down. He robs him. He takes this the share warrant to bearer or whatever document, and he controls the strip club, and now he can launder money through that. So Really cool scene. Really smart. Just shows the smarts and the intelligence of Marty, the character, and just shows us what he's capable of. So definitely really cool there. And then later on, Wendy comes in and says, she used the money from the Chicago house to buy the property, and she kind of goes behind Marty's back. Marty doesn't seem too, he doesn't care too much, but obviously I think it's going to come later on in the show and kind of come back maybe. And it might help him, it might not, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure why Wendy would do that, of course, when that Chicago house money is kind of their really only big income right now. So kind of a dick move, in a way, lack of better terms, a dick move there by Wendy to do that. But we'll see. I guess maybe it might benefit Marty in the future. And then we get that really good quote, which I've seen online many times. People talking about Ozark, the show, just in general. And this little clip of the show is actually shown in most of these trailers and the kind of reviews. So it's I really like this. But she says, "What did you do today for our family?" Right? And Jason Bateman plays it so well. He sits there, waits a few seconds. We're wondering if he's going to say something or he's not. And then he says, "Bought a strip club." So nonchalantly. And it's just perfect delivery, honestly. It's just hilarious as well. I mean, and you just see the look on Wendy's face, like, what? So just really funny. Just classic Marty. And I'm really falling in love with that character, honestly. Just the comedic part of it, the intelligent part of it. This episode really was just really just a basically a broadcast of what Marty's capabilities are, and what kind of guy he is. So it's really funny moment there. Bought a strip club, just a perfect thing to say. 4 words, got all the viewers laughing. So yeah, really good. So then a kind of a interesting scene may lead to some stuff in the future that Bobby Dean meets with a guy named Jacob. And the Jacob guy seems like a real redneck. Looks like he's a cowboy or something like that, living out there in Missouri. And basically he's killed by his wife Darlene, Jacob's wife Darlene. And she spikes him with a needle right in the neck, and he ends up foaming at the mouth, which is pretty gruesome way to die, pretty rough. And basically the reason is that he lost the strip club, lickety splits, to Marty, and obviously this Jacob guy isn't happy with them, because obviously that Bobby was laundering money through the club, and obviously this is now going to affect Jacob in the long run, because I bet he was probably what Del is to Marty, and maybe on a smaller scale, of course, probably not the leader of a cartel, but yeah, so definitely a kind of a tough moment to watch, to be honest, to see Bobby die. Me personally, I think they spent a little too long on this scene with Bobby's death. I think they could have done it a lot sooner, and just kind of got it over with. But with me, I think that they took so long with it because I think we're going to see more of Jacob, and we're going to see more of why this death happened in the future episodes. So that could be the reason for me that maybe they spent a little bit more time on this death. But yeah, an interesting scene nonetheless, and it's really interesting that his wife did it and not him. So kind of tells us more about that character and what he does. So then to end off the episode, basically, Jonah walks in on Marty counting money there in the laundry room in the middle of the night. Says he can't sleep or whatever, right? And he asks Marty, how money laundering works, and he asks him to basically explain everything, he says. And so Marty, of course, being Marty, he's just going to explain money laundering to his son in the middle of the night. That's just something he does. But yeah, it was kind of funny that he just, agrees right away. So, of course, Marty starts explaining to him. He says, money laundering 101, and then, kind of goes into it. And then we start to notice, okay, it was the audio, basically, that we heard at the very beginning of the episode, where we saw that Dell was getting his money from that bank, and this is where this audio comes from, and it basically just connects right back to the end. So I talked a little bit about this in the beginning, of course, right? But yeah, so really, really cool way they did it here to connect it back. And yeah, just really well done with the overlay there, and then comes back with this. So, and then we get the credits. So that was this episode. Now, the whole robbing of the strip club, that was basically the big portion of this one. And Bobby's death was kind of big too. And then we got a little thing from the FBI agent there. With going out with Russ Langmore, just trying to get a little bit of information from him maybe. But that was just about it for this one. This was kind of maybe another filler, in my opinion, to kind of bridge us to the next one. So I'm thinking that episode 5 is going to be a really good one. I know that a lot of people have already seen the whole series. For me personally, I'm just taking it one by one here, doing the reviews. So I'm going to be a little bit slower than others. But nonetheless, I like the episodes that are coming. I like the series so far, and Jason Bateman is great. So just as advertised for this show. So for this episode, I gave it a 3.9 out of 5 for my rating. And like I said, it was better than episode 3, which I believe I gave it a low 3 rating. So definitely better than that one. We got some action scenes with the whole safe robbing thing. And then that big scene where Marty, outsmarts Bobby completely. Just some really good scenes, some hilarious moments of dialogue. Bought a strip club. They're trying to save our lives. Just a bunch of dialogue there from Marty and Wendy that were really funny. The school shooter thing, that was just not a thing to joke about. But later on, don't get me wrong, but later on in the episode, of course, we learn that it is funny because of the way they were talking about it, and they were so sure. And meanwhile, their son's just studying animals, right? And just the whole way it was delivered was the funny part, right? Not the actual topic. Don't get me wrong for that. But anyways, 3.9 out of 5. Really, really well done episode. But obviously not my favorite. Not as good as episode 2 and 1. But yeah, so I look forward to episode 5 for the next review. My favorite character for this, of course, is Marty Byrde. I'm going to run out of things to talk about for him, but he's probably going to be my favorite character every episode. I thought maybe about Charlotte in this one, but, she's not in much of it. I can't really talk much about her if I chose her, so I'm going to stick with Marty again, and just the things that he says, the way his character is being developed here. The writers are really the ones to thank, really, for that character, as they're really developing him well. And Jason Bateman's portraying him perfectly, with his own stuff in there as well, which just adds to it, right? So great delivery of lines in this one from Jason Bateman. Just great stuff all around from the Marty character, and I'm really excited to see that character develop even more in the next few episodes. So I believe the season 1 has now 10 episodes on Netflix for the season 1 of this show. So we got 6 left to do, and then after that, of course, definitely gonna be tuning in for season 2. I just know that off the bat that I'm gonna stick with this show. I'm not sure if it's been renewed yet, but of course we'll get to that down the road. So anyways, that'll just about do it for season 1, episode 4 of Ozark, the review here. And yeah, so until next time, we'll see you for Ozark, season 1, episode.
Yeah, you got satin shoes.